Hello, hello. Hi, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to be live today, and I'm very happy to be here. Please excuse absolute chaos in the background. I am in the middle, well, right at the end of moving house, and I've also had a sick child today who woke up vomiting. So that was pretty full on. It's funny how children are like really sick in the mornings and then suddenly they're fine when you tell them they don't have to go to school. So that was yeah, that was a thing that we did today. So I'm really excited to be here, and I just wanted to do a little entry course on Lenormand and also like how I came to find the Lenormand and why it's an amazing system, why it's a very difficult system to read if you are already a tarot reader, and really how to use it, what it's all about, and why it's so magical. So I'm going to take you through this journey, and about halfway through the video we should be joined by a very lovely friend of mine, hopefully. And yeah, I'll get right into it. So if you don't know me already, my name is Hazel and I run a company called Hex Tarot. And for I think I established the company in 2016, but I was already reading tarot professionally at shopping events and conventions and things like that before that. But I wanted a really kick-ass name. I wanted a name that said, "Don't mess with me." So I established Hex Tarot. And since then, I have had the pleasure of working with many oracle decks and tarot cards, learning astrology professionally, and becoming a palm reader as well. And I love my job. It's a wonderful job. And if you are in the occult and you're invested in the occult, hello Tina. If you're invested in the occult, and as you probably are if you're here, then you just know how cool it is, and you're just thirsty for knowledge. I'm thirsty for knowledge. So I've always loved cartomancy. I've loved the idea of, and actually I love bibliomancy as well, if anyone's ever done that. And that's where you scroll through. Traditionally, it would be a Bible, but you scroll through a book and you find a proverb to a question which you have asked, or sometimes maybe just a message. And so traditionally, that would be the Bible, which is split into proverbs. But what I find is plays work really well for that. William Shakespeare works really well for that. Aleister Crowley's books work really well for that. And poetry books or anything with proverbs as well. I've used Mary Shelley before. I've used some Keats and Yeats, and I've definitely used Shakespeare. And in fact, my two favourite books to do bibliomancy from are Romeo and Juliet and the Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley, both incredible books for poetry. So what about cards? Well, I started reading tarot cards around 13, 14, but that wasn't my first journey with tarot cards. That was the first proper deck I found. But the first deck I owned was from a teen magazine called Sugar in the UK. Now, if you're from the UK, you'll know this magazine. It was really popular in the 90s. And I think I was about 11, maybe 10 or 11 when I got this Sugar deck, and I still own it. Unfortunately, it's put away, so I can't show you. But before that, I had like a miniature deck, which I also got out of a teen magazine. And I've always been fascinated by illustration, and I love artwork, and I'm a visual explorer. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily just a visual learner, but I'm certainly I enjoy the visual world. Okay, I enjoy the visual world. So that's how I got into reading tarot, through the joy of curiosity, my witchy nature, and just really enjoying pictures. But how I found Lenormand is really interesting because if you are a tarot reader and you are in the occult, there is something a little bit off-putting. I'm sure. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, by the way. Um, I'm sure you all understand that oracle decks, there is a little bit of like snobbishness attached to oracle cards because you tend to get people who are more in the love and light community who are involved with oracle cards and read angel cards, and a lot of the cards have the sort of descriptions on hello from Norway. And so it wasn't like privately, I actually really like some of the oracle cards. I've got don't judge me, but I do have some like Dorian Virtue oracle cards, and I do have some angel oracle cards, and I find them pleasant, but they don't have the veracity and the technical detail and the occult symbolism that say something like a Rider-Waite-Smith deck would have, and the classic tarot. I mean, even the simplest forms of medieval decks are still exquisitely more developed than many of these oracle cards, at least in their occult symbolism. And so I was always a bit like snobbish about it. And then I found Lenormand, and I found them through my friends. So I used to work at an occult bookshop, which was established in the early 1980s off the back of chaos magic. Now, if you don't know, chaos magic was born in West Yorkshire, where I live, and it it's the vibe around here, it's the vibe, and it was a great time for sort of the gothic movement and, the punk movement, and so these group of guys created chaos magic, and there was a rise in popularity of the occult, and so this amazing shop called Spooks was birthed, and that's how I came to work there many years later. And one of my colleagues, is a very established witch, and she's been reading tarot since 1993, she introduced me to the Lenormand, and I was shocked at its immediate punch and accuracy. I couldn't quite believe how incredibly accurate it is. And I fell in love. I really did fall in love with it. Now, I am not a super duper incredible me only expert. I'm not like the number one expert, but I did create my own deck. And I'll get onto why I created my own deck and how it varies slightly from the original deck later. But let me first take you on a journey back to the 18th century, to a time when it was very fashionable to be spiritually gifted, but of course in alignment with the church. So here we have a young girl who lives in Normandy, France, and her name is Marie-Anne Adeline Lenormand. What a name. And so Marianne Adeline Lenormand, we don't know an incredible amount about her personal life, but what we do know is at some point her father gave her to a nunnery, and she spent her time living and learning and being educated by the nuns of that community. Now, a lot of these children who were given over to the monastic life did become nuns themselves. However, Marie-Anne Lenormand was different. And she was different because from a very early age, she was known to be a prophetess. And this, I believe, is a really polite way that the church can say, you're a witch, but a white witch. So she was having visions and psychic messages and commune with the divine and prophecies at the time she was in this monastic order. And so The nuns really encouraged her to develop these skills, but they also made it clear that because she had these skills, she could not be part of the church. And so they sent her off to Paris. And when she was in Paris, what she found is that she started to collect images. And these images would support her mediumship and her prophecies. And so she would collect things like beer mats, postcards, little adverts, anything she could get her hands on. And she made a mishmash of language, like hieroglyphs, using these symbolisms that she could get hold of. Now, if after this video you were interested in Lenormand, one of the really fun thing you can do, and I might run a workshop on this at some point, is you can actually collage your own oracle cards with things that mean something to you. And that's a really good way to encourage your own psychic ability and also have a lot of fun with the art. And if you stick to something, a system like the Lenormand system, it really supports you. Now, I'll get into what the Lenormand system is shortly. So, yeah, Marianne Lenormand went off to Paris and she created this deck. Now, originally, it was 54 cards called the Grand Lenormand, and each card had incredibly literal and meaningful interpretations for her. So it didn't really matter if it meant anything to anyone else. And this was developed as her tool for divination. But as time moved on, an inventor called, I'm just looking at my notes, called J.K. Heskel, I'm probably butchering that surname, from Germany, was a designer, much in the way that you get tarot designers today. He was a game and card designer, and he came up with the 36 Lenormand card system, which is what we use today. So all the Lenormands now are 36 cards, unless you want to add your own, which you can do. So these are all 36. The numbers are relevant, and I will explain why later on. But this system was based on a very cute card game called the Game of Chance or the Game of Fate. And this involved the cards having to be placed out in the form of a house. And this system is what we're going to be learning today. So let's come back to the symbolism of the cards. Marianne Lenormand was an absolute genius. She was an incredible architect of visual language, of simplicity, of hieroglyphs and tone. And what she accomplished was, unlike the tarot, which is multi-layered, and it's almost like every truth that gets added to the tarot becomes another layer, and it's sort of like a sphere moving outwards. With Lenormand, we have one layer, and that is the truth. And nothing needs to move beyond that, and nothing is around that. There is one system, there is one layer. And so for tarot readers like myself, who've been doing it for years and years and years, it can be very, very difficult to learn the Lenormand. And I did find it difficult to learn the Lenormand because when you get into the bones of it, the house means a house. It means your house or somebody else's house. And if you are a tarot reader, it is really hard to interpret that. That as just a house. It is unbelievably difficult because you want to use your wisdom, your intuition, your psychic energy, the other visuals within the card to make up your mind. But it's a house. That is fundamentally what it is. And this is the genius of the Lenormand. The ship is a ship, or it's setting sail. It's setting sail. It's new opportunities. I can't work out this camera. New opportunities. So the house might be home and family, right? Home and family. The anchor is the arrived ship. It's the ship with cargo. It's the arrived ship. The man is a man. The mountain is something you have to climb and get beyond. So you can see how these literal interpretations can be super, super useful to string like a sentence together, to find the truth. But you can also maybe see, especially if you're tarot readers out there, why it's difficult to interpret, like the heart. These are my cards I'm showing you, by the way. So the heart, now this is my cards are much more complicated because I wanted to create sort of a universe, which I'll talk about right at the end. But like, say the heart energy, this is a really simple interpretation of the heart card, and this is the Pixie Astounding Lenormand, which is a really popular classic deck. We have to learn to just read that at face value. If you get that card coming up in a Lenormand reading, it means your heart, it means love, it means compassion. It can mean your physical heart. What it doesn't mean is a vast interpretation of that energy. So let's string a couple of cards together. We have the card, the house, and the moon. So we have the heart here. And by the way, the numbers do mean something, but I'll go into that after we've discussed the literal nature of the Lenormand. So we have the heart, the house, and the moon. And we've established that the house means a physical house, likely home and family. So our home is where our heart is. And the moon, not in astrology, not in the tarot, but in the Lenormand, means dreams and visions. So we're dreaming of our ideal home. And this is a very literal interpretation. So what happens with the Lenormand is when we are looking at the visual meanings of the cards, and also the language of the cards, we have to interpret them just at face value. Now, when you really get into reading in a more concise way and you need more information, you can look to other symbols within the cards after you've looked at the initial meaning. For example, if you just wanted to pick one card and you wanted one answer with the Lenormand, what you could do is, say you pick the child. The child means a literal child. So this is your child or somebody else's child. If there's no child involved, then it's something that needs to be taken care of. However, we want to look beyond this image now. So what is the child doing? The child's about to walk up a ladder. Well, it's a very little child. Is that a good idea? That might not be a good idea. But hang on a minute. In the background, we have the crescent moon. Not a new moon, in terms of a black moon. It's not an absent moon. It's a crescent moon. Now, crescent moons represent opportunity. They're time for planting. They're time for establishing something new. So the moon, again, another crescent, which is mirroring this little moon here. This little moon here. This is about dreams, creativity, and ambition. So now we know this child is not in danger. This child is safe to take that exploration, because the likelihood is the child isn't going to go all the way up the ladder because you're observing the child. So what you are taking care of is allowing the child the freedom to explore, because they're using their creativity. They're safe, they're gated, they're picketed. There is adults around to look after them. So you know whether this is to do with your child or a child or something you need to take care of, you're going to be okay. So this is how we draw more information out of the Lenormand, but it takes a lot of learning to just simply take things as they are. So let's look at some other simple cards. We have the dog. The dog can represent someone faithful. So if we think about what a dog is our companion, a dog is our faithful friend, a dog is loyalty. So, I mean, if you absolutely adore dogs and you've got dogs, then sometimes it can represent a dog. But what we tend to do in the Lenormand is if you say had an issue about your dog, about your pets, what you might want to do is choose a card which represents the thing or the person and see how that turns out within the spread. Okay, so usually the dog will mean someone loyal, a loyal person. If anyone has any questions, please pop them in the comments, FYI. We have the whip. Now, the whip means something very different to me, and this is one of the reasons why Marion Lenormand was such an absolute genius, because she chose things that meant something to her. She chose universal symbolism, yes, but it was also relevant to her because the whip, especially with the corn here, to me, it actually represents Egypt and Isis and rituals about bringing down the moon. So I struggle with the energy of the whip because the whip for me is the whip and the scourge, which is part of my occult practice, which is not a bad thing. Not don't go around whipping myself, but it's part of the language of my occult practice, right? So the whip, traditionally, if we look at this card, generally this is a complicated attraction. This is like a master dominating a situation. This is something complicated and difficult and possibly self-deprecating, right? So you're hurting yourself. You're doing something that hurts yourself with the whip. The fish are finances and fertility. Now, the stork is a beautiful card. I really like the stork card. So if we think about what storks mean generally as symbolism, we have maybe delivering children, things like that, you know, like the idea of a stork carrying a baby into the cradle. Storks are also about cycles. So my storks, I don't know where it's gone. Where is it? Why can you not find something when you need it? Okay, I seem to be missing my storks somewhere. I don't know where that is. Okay, my stork's disappeared. It's just decided to just deprive itself of your viewing. But generally, the storks are about new cycles. They can also be linked to the lilies because they can be about cycles ending, and the lilies can be about aging as well, and cycles aging, or also attraction. Now, sometimes I've chosen on my deck to use water lilies, and the stork is in the sun, which is quite an Eastern image. And we have the mating dragonflies there. So mine's a bit more optimistic, but lilies traditionally as well represented death too. So you'd send them to a person's family who'd passed, or if you really hated someone, you'd send them lilies to say, go die. Clover, obviously good luck. Believe it or not, they are selling 4-leaf clover plants in my local garden centre, which I am going to buy a set because they're very beautiful. And if you find a 4-leaf clover wild, it's a mutation, and it means all the other clovers nearby in that plant mycelium, that plant source, will also be mutated. So dig a patch up, take it home and propagate. Let's spread the world with luck. We have the rider, who is the messenger. The ring, and this represents cycles. So in my deck, I really chose to go to focus on the idea of cycles. And I've chosen a wreath. I've also chosen, you can't quite see it here, but I've chosen a crescent moon. And in the background, there's a maypole on this side, there's a maypole, which is sort of Beltane energy and represents the renewal of life. So in literal terms, the ring is commitment. So it's often partnership and coming together. The tower. The tower is communication and bureaucracy. It's needing time, solitude, time away. It can be official things like prisons or hospitals, or needing to be away so that you can sort your life out, basically. It can sometimes, occasionally, when I've read, it can be detox. So it can mean like rehab, that kind of thing. Generally, for most people, it's just bureaucracy. Now, the snake. I love the snake energy. I love the snake energy. So we'll get on in a moment about how to actually read them, but I just want to show you my snake, because the snake can mean a couple of things. The snake can mean someone who is not very nice, a bit of a liar. So if I look at my notes, I've put complications, but it can also be female empowerment. So it can be conflict, complications, sort of like snake through the grass, something poisonous. But in my cards, it's empowerment. It's female empowerment and being able to rise above something, being able to use your wisdom and utilize your wisdom. Now, I don't know what you want me to do, if you want me to go through all the cards. We've got quite a lot more cards to go through here. So what I might do is halt going through the rest of the cards for one moment, and I'm going to teach you how to read the Lenormand. It is such a game changer. So there's a few ways you can read the Lenormand. You can pull a card and ask a question and pull a card. So like, if I was going to say, should my client get married next week, they might pull a card. They've got the lilies, so give it time, maybe give it time, and but not too much time, okay, because then it will be too late. Or you can pull the cards by constructing a sentence. So you can say, okay, now I've got lilies, the ring, and the snake. I mean, this is such a good example of how every time you pick the Lenormand, it will be relevant to the question that you've asked. It is fascinating the way it so simplistically links to what you need to know. And that is in the nature of the design of the cards. That is in the strength of the design. That is why the Lenormand is just so incredible. It's such an incredible tool to use. So we have lilies here. Take your time and be thoughtful, but don't leave it too long. Well, you've asked if you can get married next week, and yes, the commitment can happen. You've got the ring, so you've already got the ring. You're halfway there, but oh wait, you really need to follow your wisdom. There could be complications. So what you want to do is move not with haste. You don't want to move with haste. You want to move with intention, and you want to follow your intuition. So what I will be saying to my client to string this sentence together is, if next week feels like a rush, then it's a rush. If next week feels like it's an empowerment, it's meant to be. If you're off to Vegas and you've been talking about marriage and you're going to get it, it's possible, then you need to make it happen. So it's a very nice literal interpretation. If we were going to add to that, we could even add the birds in. So a conversation needs to be had. Perhaps this person has decided to get married next week and the other person's not sure, and there needs to be a conversation. So that's two ways to read. But you have to remember, with the Lenormand, it's not about looking through the book and interpreting what the cards mean, unless you're going to look through the book to find the literal meaning. This is not cloudy. It's not trying to pick things apart and work out directions. And this is not the oracle system for self-help guides. This is the oracle system for predictive fortune telling. So let's say someone is working out if they want a housemate. Okay, so we have the dog, the ship, and the house. So what we have is someone's friend needs a place to stay. Someone's friend needs a place to move in. And it's a lovely energy here where we can work with the person by opening our doors to their home. We can find a housemate that we need, someone loyal, someone reliable, and someone courteous. So now I'm going to move on to why the Lenormand is just so cool and so fun to use. So here, what we do with the Lenormand is we make something called the Grand Tabbouleh. Sorry, my little boy's just coming with me. Don't come on the camera. Don't come on the camera. Thank you, darling. My little bless him, he's been sick this week. Okay, so what we have here is something called a Grand Tabbouleh. And this is where you create 4 rows of 8. This is the real magic of reading the Lenormand. And what you're left with is 4 rows of 8 and 4 cards, which you can either leave at the top or at the bottom. Now, these are your sentence structure. These are the cards that you form the meaning of what you're... Sorry, just bear with me a moment. Oops. Poor little thing, I frightened him. Oh, my little boy has been poorly today, so he's having a bit of trouble sleeping. So I might have to go, but I think it'll be okay. We'll just see how we get on. I walked over to him and started crying, poor little boy. Okay, so what we've got here is we have what is known as a Grand Tabbouleh. And the 4 cards which are left over form the message. So let's use an example. A woman is having a problem in her relationship and she needs to know how to address this issue. So what we have here is we have the tree, which is a 5, the tower, card 19, the birds, card 12, and the lilies, card 30. So to create a sentence with this, what I would say is you need to create some physical space to communicate, to find a new pattern of being. Because the tower's there, the tower is about official business. This could mean therapy, because you've got the birds about talking, you've got the trees about physicality, and you've got the lilies about cycle. So this might represent going to some counselling. Now, what we then do is we look at where the woman is in the Grand Tabbouleh. And the woman will tell you everything you need to know about where she's been, where she's heading, and where she's going to. So each card, if you've noticed, has a number. and the number represents a certain position in this grand table. So, for example, we have at the top left-hand corner, we have card 1, and that is the same house, a bit like the houses in astrology, right? Sometimes Aries is linked to the first house. So card 1 is linked to the first position, and that is the rider. So you know any card that is in house 1 relates to the message. So what we have here in card 1 happens to be the ring. And what we're talking about is somebody's marriage. So we have something, a message about their commitment, a message about their union, which is card 25. So what we might want to do is go and look at where card 25 is, or house 25. So we look at where card 25 would normally be. So we count down from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, down to the next row, down to the next row, until we get to card 25. And that is the whip. So this has come out shuffled in the spread as the whip. And the whip means a complicated love. It can mean infidelity. It can mean unchecked sexuality. It can mean a dominance of power, or even getting in your own way. Okay. So there is something happening here where this relationship has got in its own way. So what we want to look at is, because the woman has come to us for a reading, we want to look at really where she is in this grand table. And she is on the second row, third in, which is card 9, 10, 11. I'm just going to show you. This is my version of the woman. This is actually my friend Nancy, who is a really magical person. And interestingly enough, because she is in house 11, second row, third card in, house 11 is now in position 25 of the ring and commitment. So what is this telling us? Let's string a sentence together. It's telling us that the woman feels a complexity about her commitment. There's a message here that she needs to hear. And the message is, from these 4 cards we've got laid beneath, that she really must take some official action and communicate about how she's feeling. She needs to communicate how she's feeling, but she needs to do it before it's too late, because she's got the lilies here as well. She's got the lilies saying it could be too late. So when a person comes to us, we usually get them to pick a card which they feel represents them. And traditionally that would be the man or the woman. Now, some of my friends who read have suggested that it's really good to have an extra set of the male and female cards, because then people can, if they're in same-sex relationships, they can pick cards which suit them, or maybe more fluid gender-looking cards, so they don't have to be a man or a woman. And the numbers would be the same. So you could just switch them out for 28 and 29, which is the woman at 29 and the man at 28. But for this reading, this woman has come to us, and so she is represented by card 29. So anything that is to the left of her in this grand table is what has happened in the past. Anything is to the right is what she needs to sort out. Anything that is to the top is what she is. Let's just double check my notes. Everything is above is what they are already aware of. I'm going to get into this little bit of the reading in a moment, because I think it'll interest you. And everything that below is what they need to sort out, or what they've already sorted out, but they need to tie the loose ends up. So if we look at the past, what we've got in the past is, it looks very much to me like this woman, hypothetical woman who doesn't exist. She's got this card next to her called the Scythe, and it's in its own house. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Second card, second row down, second one in, card 10. So it's in its own house. So it means exactly what it says it does on the tin. And it's bowed towards her. It's the scythe is placed towards her, which basically means she's ended something, she's had to end something, and she may be in a bit of trouble or danger because of this. So she's ended something with a lot of risk involved. And above her is card 8, which is the coffin. I mean, you can't be clearer than that, can you? Now, what is it she's actually ended? We kind of can guess that this is a relationship now, but what else has she ended? We have card 4. So this is in position 8. So if we look at this card and this card together, we can really tell that this means she's ended something with the home and family. She has decided to go away from the home and family. Perhaps she needs time out because she has the Tower card here. She needs physical time out. So the trees represent physicality. Now, sometimes they can represent sex very occasionally, but usually it's the physical body. So it's your physical house. And now she has to make a decision. So what's in her future? In her future, we have card 1. And card 1, as we saw earlier, it has the ring in its house. So now she has to think about where she's heading, how she's going to get there. And the way she does that is card 1 is in house 12, the house of communication. So she knows she's got to talk about this. It's no good just ending things abruptly without consideration and without being prepared to start a new cycle. So what has she taken care of? Well, in order to do this, she's had to take care of her own pleasure, her own joy. Card 20, which represents, I love card 20 actually. Card 20 is like community and living together and harmony and promenading and fun and things that you'd associate with a garden. So it's a bit like, you know, local community dinner parties, fun, like allotments, gardens, that kind of thing. So now we have a picture. I wish I could show you this, but my tech is really tricky at the moment because obviously, as you can see, I'm in the middle of moving. So a lot of my usual tech is not here at the moment. So what we can see is a large spread of cards. And within this large spread of cards, by using the number sequence 1 to 36, we can look at the number on the cards to work out sentences to tell us the truth about a particular message that we're trying to extract. And this is incredibly useful. So if we look at the woman again, and the woman, as we've said, is in position 11. So her house is card 29. So we have to go all the way down to card 29, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth deck. It's the fourth line. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 along. And 5 along, we have the clouds. So this obviously means confusion. Okay. Really, like we all understand that clouds mean confusion and chaos. And to clear that communion and chaos, she has the star, which is about communication again. So she needs to communicate. And lo and behold, the star is card 16. And if we look at where 16 is in the sequence, we have a letter. So what's very clear if this client came to me is that they really, really need to communicate, that they've either ended a relationship or they're needing to end a relationship, but they have to be clear why they're doing it and they need to communicate in order to do that. And this is the difference between tarot and Lenormand, and this is why Lenormand is so good for predictive readings. This is why the Lenormand is outstanding for accuracy, because with the tarot, someone might come to me and I would give them advice, I'd be saying, well, here's some tools you could use to strengthen your own self-esteem. Here's what you may want to enact. Here's how you may want to communicate. These are the possible dates that things are going to happen. With the Lenormand, it's very clear what is going to happen and how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. It's much more punchy, it's much more precise. It doesn't mince its words and it doesn't lie to you. If the relationship's over, it says the relationship is over, and it can say it in 2 or 3 cards without needing any further information. And this is why it is just absolutely incredible. It's an absolutely incredible system to use. Now, that was probably very complicated if you've never seen or heard about the Lenormand before. But don't worry. The beauty of them only being 36 cards is they're generally very cheap to get hold of. And once you've got the bug and you've started to look into them, they are incredibly easy and effective tools for accurate predictive fortune telling, the traditional fortune telling. So why did I choose Lenormand to make my oracle deck with? Well, I've been working on a tarot deck for about 8 years and it just wasn't happening. The more I learn about tarot, the further away I've got to learn. And you can't beat the Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, there's so many beautiful decks out there. There's thousands of decks, and I have upward of about 200 tarot. And some of them are more artistic and they're not functional, and some of them are incredible. And the more I know, the less confident I get about creating a deck, because I just want to put everything in. I want all the information, all the layers, everything I possibly can in. And of course, you can't do that. You have to simplify and be concise. The Thoth deck is the Thoth deck. The Rider-Waite-Smith deck is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. The Enochian Magic deck is the Enochian Magic deck. And they all have their own personality and they all have their own way of interpreting the divine. They all have their own stream of energy. And so making an oracle deck is a lot less pressure, because A, you can make your own system up and it doesn't have to be tried and tested. You can create one. And if you do want to work with a system, I'm very, very Capricornian. It's not my only placements, other strong placements, but I have 4 planets in Capricorn. So I like top-down structure, I like tradition, I like following a course that has been tried and tested. And so I'm also the year of the wood rat as well, I think. So yeah, I like tried and tested. And so for me, the Lenormand was a perfect deck to use because I knew it was accurate, I knew it was concise, and the symbolism is just so simple. It's so simple. Now, where my deck varies dramatically from other decks is my deck is called the Magic Folklore Lenormand deck. And what I wanted to do is to add a little bit of those layers, a little bit of those magic, a little bit of the nature of who I was and my practice and our collective wisdom. And so I chose to create a deck which was based on deciduous forests, which means multi-treed species forests in the Northern Hemisphere in Europe. And so I have taken inspiration from many rituals and traditions in Europe, including things like the yurts and Lady Godiva's in the whip, the deer. Now, where I've really carved this out to be part of me is some of these experiences and things are things I experience daily. For example, out my windows here, there is a birch wood, the silver birch wood, and they feature heavily in my deck. So I wanted to create something of my personality within the deck. to make it more honest about my spiritual journey. But what I've tried to do is to still keep the literal meanings of the cards, and we have the language down here. So we still have the heart. Some of you may recognize this kind of garment if you were at Witch Camp International with me a couple of weekends ago. And the other thing I wanted to do with my Lenormand deck is I'm a Tolkien fan. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I am a world, like a dimensional universe fan, where I can really feel present in or I can get involved in the idea of there being multiple dimensions and multiple realities. And I like worlds that draw you in, like I'm going to use these as an example, but it's not just this genre, right? But like Game of Thrones, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, they're things which draw you into their world, and their worlds are so rich, like the world of Harry Potter. Everyone has a backstory, there's history attached to it, there's a richness to its imagination, and it creates its own universe, it creates its own sphere. And what I wanted to do with my deck, because I love that kind of expansive imagination and that like idea of creating worlds, I wanted to do that in my deck. So where my deck differs from other decks is we may just have a repeat of, I wish you could see the colours a bit better here, but we may just have a repeat of tone or colour within the deck, and obviously stylized. But what isn't the same is it's not one world, it's just a simple deck. It's not really created to form a universe. Of course it does by its nature because it's drawn by one artist, but it's just does what it says on the tin. The birds are about communication, the rider's about a message, does what it says on the tin. My cards feed into each other, so much like the Astonishing Pixie Tarot reuses the moon over and over again, my cards reuse the house over and over again. They reuse images over and over again. And what I've actually done is created a map to go with my Magical Folklore Lenormand, and with all the places. And the deck for me does deviate from the traditional Lenormand deck because it's not as simple, it's not as easy to read, but what it can do is it can offer you a place which is a safe place where you can go and you can journey and you can travel. So what I have done is actually evolved the Lenormand and really turned it into something which is where I want to be, which is using divination not just as a tool for fortune telling, but also as a way of finding space within yourself, finding commune with your divinity, finding peace and finding growth within yourself and resolve within yourself in a spiritual way. So the way I do that is I have created this world where you can walk into it, and it is a portal and it is its own universe. You can go and sit in the house through journey work and meditation. You can go meet Lady Godiva on her horse, or whoever you want that to be. You can journey into the mountains. You can sit and meditate in the garden with my cat, who is my little familiar. There she is. Where is she? There she is. You can go catch the salmon in the river. And that is where my deck significantly differs from the classic Lenormand deck. Now, it's not the only deck I will ever produce, and it's got its own problems. And one of my friends pointed out to me the other day, which is really helpful. If any of you own this deck or you want to buy this deck, I'll put a link afterwards in the bio. You can buy it from my website. But if you already own it or you're interested, there is mistakes. But this is the beauty of creating things. So, for example, with the clouds, what I could have done with is having one of the clouds more grey and one of them clearing. So when they are sat next to another card, we can see whether it's going to be a difficult conversation or moving away from a difficult conversation. Okay, moving to create peace. So having clarity within visual language is what traditional Lenormand offers. It offers precise, literal, clear, detailed information, which is that an oxymoron? Simple detail, simply detailed. But what I'm trying to say is we can read it at face value. We can read it literally without feeling concerned whether we're getting it right or wrong. Now, there is, of course, more complicated decks. I actually based my tarot on, my Lenormand deck on this deck, which is the Russian Fairy Oracle. This is such a beautiful deck. The colours are incredible, and you may recognise the artist. And one of the things I like about this particular deck is it has sort of a lot of folklore and mythology attached to the deck. So this, you do get more complex decks. You do get more unique decks as you get more advanced, as you understand the numbers more, as you understand the houses more and the system more. But if you're looking for something simple to learn with, I would recommend a traditional gypsy Lenormand deck. I think that's what they're called, gypsy Lenormand deck. You could even read with a different system. There's a really good deck of cards called the Gypsy Fortune Telling cards that are just like Lenormand, but there is there's many more cards to them, and they are also very, very literal. But the Pixies Astounding Lenormand, I highly recommend, because the symbolism is just so clear when you're starting out and you're starting to learn them, unless, of course, you are a bit dyslexic or not used to Roman numerals, and then it can be a bit of a problem to decipher. But if you like Roman numerals and you like simplicity, I could highly recommend this deck. Now, unfortunately, I can't remember where we were up to in the meanings of the other cards, but what I can say is you don't really need me to tell you the meanings. You don't really need me to do that, because you'll be able to work it out for yourself. Even if you bought a deck without a booklet, you have to think and use your critical judgment. Like, what does a ship mean to you? Well, if you look at the picture, the ship's on it's not thunderstorm, there's no clouds, but it's choppy. The sea's choppy. So ship's voyage, it's on a voyage. There's a choppy voyage, so you're going somewhere that's maybe full of trepidation, a bit anxious, not really sure what's going to happen when you get there. So you can use your own discernment in a way that you can't with the tarot, in a way that many young readers would need the book, to rely on the book for the tarot. You don't need this with Lenormand, but what you do need is to move away from your prejudice about understanding the tarot. You need to move away from your prejudice about your ability to read, whether you're at one end being a medium and a psychic, or whether you're at another end being a novice. If you speak the cards literally, what you will find is that the cards will give you the answers, and you don't need to be psychic. You don't need to be good. All you need to do is say what you see. There was a TV show, really famous TV show, and I think it ran for like 3 decades in the UK, called Catchphrase. I'm sure you've had it in many other countries, where an image would come on the screen, and then the contestants would have to say what they see. And it is surprisingly hard to do that, because we are creative, and we are wired and programmed to look beyond. But perhaps that's a modern trait, perhaps that's something which we have had to learn to do, and it's not something which is completely natural. And maybe Marianne Lenormand's gift, maybe her true, like, gift to the world was the fact that she didn't have that. She was literal, and she could really accept that matter of fact way of reading, which offered her such accuracy, and it guided so many people to make the most out of their situation and have foresight of what was coming ahead. And if I have learned anything from Lenormand, it's to trust the first thing I see. And that is not always accurate in this crazy world. And I would always use discernment and critical thought. But certainly when I'm reading with Lenormand or I'm following my gut instinct, she has taught me time and time again to take what I am feeling or take what I am seeing and believe in me and believe in the language of the cards. So yeah, has anyone got any questions before we draw to a close? I feel so sorry for my little boy. He was like having a minor meltdown before, but I think he's okay now. So let's see. Hello, hello, hello. I can't believe all these people from everywhere. It's so lovely. Thank you so much for showing up. Like, I'm not very tech savvy, and I'm also like streaming everything off my phone at the moment. And I really want to create good quality, high grade content for everyone because I like the community. It's not so much about me sharing my wisdom, and I know I'm good at this, but that's not what this is about. This is about me learning from you and about me engaging with all of you and growing our community because that's what really matters to me. You could be the best in the world at anything, but if no one gets to enjoy that, then you're not really the best. You're nothing. You're nobody. So you have to be engaged to grow. I'm reading this amazing book at the moment, just to begin to conclude, called Circe, and if you don't know her, she is in the Greek myths. She's sort of like a demigod, nymph, powerful nymph, and she's a witch. She's one of the four witches, sons and daughters of Helios, the sun god, the Titan sun god. And she spends a lot of her time alone practicing her craft, but it's really only when she reveals that to the world that she becomes the hero in her own story. And I love that for her. And that's one of the things that I love about sharing with everyone on here. So thank you. Thank you so much, Hazel. I'm so happy to learn the No Alarm deck with you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so if you want to know more, I will probably I'll probably do like a little free YouTube course where I use my swan neck and we can actually look at the table. And I'll put that up over the next few weeks so everyone can really see what all this Lenormand stuff is about. And once I've sorted this video out, providing I have no technical issues, I'll tag some Lenormand decks which are useful, including mine at the bottom, and hopefully you will enjoy. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming through. I've really appreciated it. And yeah, have fun playing with the Lenormand. If you're a tarot reader, don't be surprised if it frustrates you at first, and don't be surprised if you can't get your head around how much more accurate it is than the tarot. And that's coming from me, who is an extremely accurate tarot reader. I can't. That's okay, darling, don't worry about it. Um, yeah, it was, I had a tantruming child in the middle of the talk anyway, bless him. Um, yeah, so I will catch up with you all soon, and stay tuned, DM me. I'm on hex_tarot on Instagram if you want to find me. And my website is www.hextarot.com if you want to purchase a reading off me or have a look at my merch or my card deck or anything else that I have to offer. And by the way, if you do buy a card deck off me, you get a coloured booklet with all the meanings. And you get this very snazzy tarot scarf as well, just to lay them on. So I hope that has been lovely, and thank you for joining, and I will see you all again. Okay, bye for now. See you later. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.